Welcome to TypeScript FM, the friendly podcast for TypeScript developers where we bring you news, updates, and interviews from the community with plenty of tomfoolery sprinkled in. I'm your host, Kamran Ayub, and I'm joined by my co-host and best bud, Eric Onerheim. Together, we're the two TypeScript fools. Welcome to the show. Hey, Eric, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I am very tired for no reason, but I'm tired.
I felt like that yesterday, actually. We actually got to sleep in until 9. The kids let us sleep in, and I was still tired. So I took a nap in the afternoon. That felt better. But yeah, I don't know why either.
Yeah. So what's going on with you?
We got to see the Minecraft movie yesterday.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Do you know much about it?
I other than Jack Black, isn't it, with Jason Momoa? That's all I know.
Yeah, so I thought Jason Momoa was really funny. Like, he was pretty funny. And Jack Black is like a typical Jack Black. Like, he only knows how to play one character. If you think about him, he's basically playing himself as Tenacious D, essentially.
Nice.
So he's got a few musical numbers in there, and some of them are pretty funny. Like Lava Chicken is probably, I think, the kids' favorite one. So you'll have to watch it. And I think that Jennifer Coolidge stole the show, though, and she has a very minor part. She plays the principal of the school, but there's like a gag that runs throughout the movie, which is like a villager goes through the portal into the real world, and she basically takes him out on a date and falls in love with him or whatever. It's really funny. And then I don't want to spoil it at the very end, but I will say that Matt Berry makes a Easter egg appearance, because Matt Berry was originally supposed to play Steve, but then Jack Black played Steve. So anyway, Matt Berry uses his Matt Berry voice at the very end in the credits, so stick around to the credits. And there is an end credit scene too, so stick around to the very, very end if you want some funny stuff.
Yeah, I've heard from a few people that it's very entertaining.
Yeah, I would say so. And then we also saw the Percy Jackson and Lightning Thief play put on by the Children's Theater. So that was a lot of fun. Enjoyed that. It wasn't too long. And we had watched the Disney show too, so I don't know if you've seen that, but it was pretty good. Otherwise, I'm almost done with my game that I've been talking about lately on the podcast. I've been finishing Avowed, and I'm literally at the last battle. So hopefully I'll finish it tonight or tomorrow. You've been busy too, it looks like, with some art-filled activities.
Yeah. It's been very media-focused. We got a lot of culture this last week. We went to the theater. We went to the Guthrie here in Minneapolis, and we went and saw Mousetrap, the Agatha Christie play.
Nice.
It's one of the oldest running plays. I will say that my father-in-law, we clocked the killer almost immediately. So I'm very proud of that. But no one in our group or our sphere did. So I'll just leave it at that, because you're not supposed to say.
Nice.
And then we also went to the Luminary Arts Center here in Minneapolis, and they did a candlelight concert with Miyazaki film music. And it was all string instruments, and it was fantastic.
That's cool.
So if you're in the area, definitely go check that out. I am super busy prepping for my talk in May at NDC Oslo 2025. So that's coming up. I've got a lot more slides to write. I've got a good start, I'd say. Maybe 10% of it is done, generously.
Better get on that.
Yeah, I better get on that. I'll also be this weekend at Minibar doing a micro talk, 4 minutes, very much a micro talk. And then I'm also volunteering for the IGDA TC Indie Arcade. So a bunch of local game devs are showing off their games. So come say hi. I'll be there.
I will be there too. I won't necessarily be with you at the booth the whole time because I'll be an attendee, but I'm looking forward to it. It's one of my favorite local events.
Yeah, it's at the Best Buy campus, and it's a lot of fun.
Yep. And you can it can be free to attend, or you can donate to get lunch and stuff, so it's pretty sweet. TypeScript FM is sponsored by Excalibur JS, the friendly TypeScript game engine for the web. Like many of you, I got into computers because I loved video games and dreamed of making one, but game development always felt a bit intimidating. Instead, I built a career in web development, though that dream of making games never really went away. Then I met Eric, who showed me I could use my HTML, CSS, and JavaScript skills to create games with just a bit of game design knowledge and the right engine. Excalibur.js makes game development approachable, offering everything you need to build 2D web games. Arcade physics, sprites, animations, input support, and integrations with tools like Tiled and Asprite. It's beginner-friendly, yet flexible enough to grow with you. Our team has published 10 games using Excalibur, all written in TypeScript. If you're a web developer looking to dip your toes into game dev or sharpen your TypeScript skills, give Excalibur.js a try at excaliburjs.com. Click the big tutorial button to start building your first game, Excalibur, a Flappy Bird clone. After that, join our friendly Discord community of web developers who love to help each other and share game dev tips. Well, we've got some news, some actual real news this week. Quite a bit of stuff. You know, one of the things that is sort of silly that I just realized as we were prepping for this next news episode is that we should have added a TSGo segment to the news, because now that's going to be on everybody's minds. So we've done that, ladies and gentlemen. We now have a listening system set up for watching the TSGo pull requests. So we'll be able to give you some weekly news on what has been happening. The big thing that happened 3 weeks ago, which we missed, but is really big news, is that JSX parsing is in there. So I could not use TSGo right away because I've got a React app and it wasn't able to support JSX parsing, and now it does. So I can actually test it out and see if it works on my code base. Also saw that some autocomplete support was merged. So inside of Visual Studio Code, if you're using TSGo, you'll get autocomplete when you hit dot now. So that's pretty cool. That's like a pretty good developer experience, quality of life update. So that's pretty major. And then the other interesting thing is that they recently merged the ES Next transform, but specifically with that, it down levels both the using keyword and the await using statement. Now, Eric, I had actually not heard of using, but apparently it was introduced in TypeScript 5.2, and I will link to a Matt Pocock Total TypeScript blog post on it. But if you're coming from .NET, it's basically like the .NET dispose. So apparently symbols, you can define a symbol.dispose, which is a well-known symbol that I guess the browsers are going to support or runtimes are going to support. And currently that's a stage 3 TC39 proposal. So it is coming, but it basically lets you clean up resources. So that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that. I actually have been pining for the fjords on this one for a little bit because building game stuff, there are some use cases for using that would be super nice, especially when you're doing context-aware stuff. Not just resource cleanup, but say you want to be operating on some code within a context, using is super useful for that kind of stuff. So that, say you want code to only work in a specific context and you wrap it in a using. That's super useful.
Nice. Oh yeah, listeners, if you haven't used that yet, you should definitely go check that out. I also saw pnpm got a release. Now the notable thing here is if you're using pnpm, before you could not install packages from JSR, but now you can. If you add the JSR : prefix before the package name, you can now install packages from JSR. Cool. Also looks like they added support for a flag called dangerous allow all builds, which is nice and descriptive. But basically that just runs all the scripts. So Dino and pnpm, I guess, which is something that I learned, prevents lifecycle scripts by default. And actually Bun does too, I think. So you have to manually pass a flag to allow it. And before, you could configure that at your workspace level, so you could enable that. But now you can also just pass a flag when you run the add command that will allow those scripts to run. So that's good.
Yeah, and it's probably a good thing that those lifecycle scripts don't run by default, because it's been a vector for malware.
Yes. Yep. It's kind of tough too, because you don't always know. Maybe you trust a package in their scripts, but if you're installing a package you're not familiar with, then how many people are actually going and checking out what the lifecycle scripts do? 0. You're holding up your hand saying 0. Nice. Well, anyway, you should be cognizant of it, but if you do need to run all scripts, you can do that now. We haven't talked about Juno yet, and we have an episode in the works that we're going to be talking about deploying TypeScript and specifically talking more about serverless like applications with TypeScript. But Juno is one of the players in that space. They are a serverless runtime for building apps, and I believe that you can do Rust, and now they just announced you can write serverless functions in TypeScript. Now, one thing to note is that we did cover runtimes like Cloudflare Workers before, and we noted that a lot of these runtimes that are serverless don't have full Node.js support because they're not running a Node.js. So it's the same limitation here. You're going to need to make sure that whatever APIs you need to use on these serverless runtimes are supported, so you're going to want to check that first. But we'll link to the blog post where they go over that announcement, and you can kind of see them in action. It's pretty cool. If you're familiar with like Firebase, where it's like a backend as a service, you can essentially do a lot of the same things where you can like react to a document change, like if you're using their built-in data stores. And they have specific terminology for stuff. I guess they're called satellites is sort of what the serverless functions are, or like the serverless app. But anyway, there's different events you can listen to, and they're just exported as top-level exports, or even, I think, just event handlers. So they try to make it really simple, and there's not a lot of code that you need, so you can go check that out too. Next up, both of us are big fans of Storybook. We've been using Storybook for a long time. I don't even remember, like, I don't know, since 1.0 maybe, but at least, since 2 or 3.
Early days.
Early days, yep. And we actually do have Storybook set up for Excalibur to show some of the examples, because what's cool is you can create like interactive examples. And they just have been releasing stuff all the time. So they are actually now on Storybook 9 beta, and it's got 48% lighter weight. So they showed a screenshot of the before and the after of their dependency tree. It's like a massive simplification. So it's much lighter weight. It now supports React Native testing through the web. So if you've got a React Native app, you can now use Storybook to test it, which is super cool. They put a lot more emphasis now on component testing. So they added a lot of quality of life updates there. They've added quality of life updates to interaction tests. This is new to me. I haven't used that feature, but basically you can like test events in a timeline and assert against that and stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. And then they've also been working hard on accessibility testing. So now you can like run your accessibility tests across your entire test suite. They've also added tag-based organization of stories, which is nice, because if you've got a really big storybook, it can be kind of hard to know where stuff is. And now you can just add tags, and you can filter by tags in the sidebar. So anyway, if you are on Storybook, you should definitely go check that out. And if you haven't even started with Storybook, you should definitely check it out, because it's really nice where the component tests you can do in isolation. So like if you have Jest or you're doing like a unit test, that's nice, but you can't easily test like interactions and stuff, or different component states and assert on like the visual state. And that's what Storybook lets you do. So you definitely want to check that out. What other news you got for us?
PSA, Node 18 is end of life on April 30th, which is going to be tomorrow if we publish this on time. So definitely make sure that you're off of Node 18. You don't want to be on an end of life node.
Yes, and there are specific things if you're using hosted like CI/CD runners that are using Node 18. Don't quote me on this, but I believe if I recall correctly, GitHub Actions usually supports stuff up to 6 months after the end of life date, which means that if you've got Node 18 GitHub Action runners, you're going to want to upgrade them. Like you should do it now, but I think there is a little bit of a grace period on that. But you should just be aware that things might start breaking if you're still using Node 18. Fantastic. We've got some cool community highlights, stuff that's been happening that we've seen on Blue Sky, Reddit, other places. So one thing that I saw in Blue Sky in a thread, actually, was a new ORM. So we didn't cover this in our ORM episode, but this is a brand new one. It's called Joist ORM. And the selling point for this one is that it guarantees you won't run into N+1 loading issues, which if you've dealt with ORMs before, you know that that's a big pain point. And a lot of the times you have to manually like work around that. Like it's up to you as the user to prevent N+1 loading. But this one it basically guarantees that you won't run into it. So it's by Stephen Haberman, and he's claiming in his Why Joist ORM in the documentation blog post that it's the best ORM ever, period. So that comes from not his point of view necessarily, but a coworker who used the library. They said if it compiles, it works. So if you love TypeScript, you'll love Joist. It's really effing fast, so no N+1s ever. We solve many common problems for you, auto-batching updates, handling the insertion order of related entities, and have many patterns for enums, polymorphic relations, etc. And they have apparently test factories, which makes testing amazing. So those are some of the comments from someone who is using Joist ORM. And maybe we'll just have to have Steven onto the podcast to talk more about it, but that's, I think, definitely something you could take a look at if you're in the ORM market.
Yeah, there's a really good blog post on Hacker Noon. Remember Hacker Noon? I love Hacker Noon.
Yeah.
By Javier Tovar about the TypeScript interview questions. And these are great. I paged through these. These are kind of like your table stakes, I think, in a lot of ways.
Quiz me.
Okay. Let's see. These are kind of tough to... Oh, okay. How about this? What are the primitive types in TypeScript?
What are the primitive types in TypeScript? Number, Boolean, string, unknown, never. And I feel like I'm missing something obvious. Hold on. Closing my eyes. I'm meditating. Hold on. What else is a primitive object?
Yeah, okay.
Do you think that's a primitive? I don't know.
I don't know if it is.
Did I get them? Am I missing something obvious?
There's a couple tricky ones. Null and undefined are technically types. Okay.
Sure. Yes, I
and
forgot
then there's
those.
Two that I almost never use, which are a symbol and big int.
Okay. I actually wouldn't have thought about big int.
No, I wouldn't have said big int for sure.
Yeah, and I probably would have missed symbol if I was actually taking this and thinking about it. But that's cool. That's good. So there's obviously stuff. Maybe you want to take it and test your TypeScript knowledge. Please don't interview me for any TypeScript things. Just go look at what I've built, and that's my interview.
Yeah, I'm never a big fan of like trivia questions either. Even though I just gave you one, I don't think that's like demonstrative of the ability to do a job is to answer trivia questions. I'm more interested in concepts.
I officially have lost my TypeScript membership card, so I must exit the podcast stage right. Goodbye.
You got to cut the corners off your card. But check that blog post out. It's got a lot of good nuggets. It's a short read, but it's got a lot of the top features. So if you're looking for like, hey, these are the top features in TypeScript, go take a look.
Cool.
All right, next up, we have a really awesome blog post from Blue Sky user, I believe it's pronounced Casper. They are a self-described TypeScript engineer. I feel kinshipped. They are on a sabbatical right now, and they wrote this really great blog post about quad trees. And quad trees are near and dear to my heart because they're often used in game development, and it's what they sound like. They're a tree with like 4 leaves at a time, and they're often used for partitioning space. So, in fact, Excalibur has quad trees if you want to use quad trees, but they're super useful for efficiently discovering where things are in relation to each other, because the naive approach, for example, if you want to see, is this point near to, every other point in your game? Well, you have to loop through n squared to figure that out. But quad trees give you an n log n way of answering that question. So it's pretty slick, especially if you need to organize things in space. So not just for games, but also for like maps, images, level of detail type stuff that you need to do. It's super great. And it's a data structure that's really easy to understand once you take a look at it. And Casper has a really neat little interactive demo on the website where you can click and add and see how the space is partitioned.
Yeah, that's cool. And I don't know too much about quad trees, but that's why I read the blog post so I could learn a little bit more about it. But any type of like spatial partitioning, you're going to want to use something like a quad tree. Are there other approaches you know of that are like quad trees but different?
Yeah, so I think the one that comes to mind first is the 3D extension, which is Octtree, which is what you might think of it. You're splitting a cube into 8 instead of like in a 2D space, you're splitting it into 4.
Okay. We've got some cool stuff to share. So as you know, listeners, if you listen to the retrospective, so now we're doing a new approach that we think might be better, where we're doing news on Tuesdays and learning or deep dives on Thursdays. So the Secrets of the Handbook is going to move to Thursday. But we're going to keep Cool Stuff segment as the end segment for this episode and for the news episodes. So one of the cool things that I came across this last week was VS Code Agent Day. So this was a live stream event. There were some cool community members featured, including Cassie Du, who we've linked to before in a previous newsletter. She works at GitHub, and they were showing off some cool stuff, including Project Padawan. Have you heard of Project Padawan, Eric?
I'm not familiar.
Okay, so imagine GitHub Copilot agents in your repo working. So that's basically what it is. So VS Code introduced the agent mode for Copilot not too long ago. It wasn't beta, now it's stable, so you can enable it in your VS Code. So that's what the talks and stuff were all about. But it works locally. So like you have to open up GitHub Copilot, turn on agent mode, and then you can say like I had it actually build me some Terraform config because I had a chore that I wanted to do. And I didn't know how to create like a cloud init YAML file that my host provider could use to configure my virtual machine. So I was like, hey, agent, I need to do this thing. I'm using Terraform. I'm using Ubuntu. Can you just do this for me? And it did. And so it like works asynchronously, and you can like review all the changes, and then you can approve or reject different changes. But I had it bootstrap a PR for me, and then I'm going to take it from there because it did some stuff that I didn't want it to do. Like, it didn't understand some of my infrastructure and the way it was laid out, but that's also because I didn't give it enough context for that. But it was like running CLI commands to like check the Terraform config, or like use my hosting provider CLI to like list different VM instances and stuff. So that's kind of what agent mode can do. But Project Padawan puts it all into your repo in the cloud. So it basically uses like a dev container, cloud sandbox, and it can do all that same stuff, but it does it asynchronously. And you basically can like assign Copilot to an issue, and then it takes it up, right? And that's how you trigger it. So it's like a teammate that does the work asynchronously, opens up a PR, and then you can review it and stuff. So anyway, I think that's pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure it's going to be quite expensive, but I don't know, could be pretty neat. So that's one of the cool things that I saw last week.
Awesome. Well, I've got a few things that were kind of cool that came across my desk. Dan has been on a roll, Dan Abramov, with a new React Server Components post talking about the difference between use client and use server and how they technically work. You'll remember that Dan had a great blog post about what React Server Components actually are earlier, and I recommend you check that blog post out and that video. But this one talks about like how to think about use client and use server. The blog post is incredibly detailed, but I think the like kind of maybe the pithy statement here is that use client is a typed script, like a script tag, and use server is a typed fetch. And I'd recommend you check out the video that goes along with the blog post. He's doing a great job. He's doing the Lord's work demystifying React concepts.
I was just going to say that his deep dives are awesome, and I'm sure that's why he's super popular, but he's been on a React server roll recently.
He sure has. And it's great for me as a person who's kind of been a React noob on the React periphery. So I've been learning a lot about how React actually works, and it just feels like I'm leveling up my knowledge as the need arises for me to interact with React a lot more in recent days. Next up is a neat little library for tracking WebGL memory usage. It's kind of got a cool technique to it. It effectively spies on your WebGL calls and estimates the size of things in your WebGL memory or your graphics memory. So I'm like, this is a really cool idea. And mostly because I recently had a bug in Safari where, in Chrome on a Mac, where we were bouncing through memory constraints and crashing the browser. And it took one of our contributors pointing out something obvious and figuring it out. And I was bashing my head on it for like 2-3 days. And they were like, I bet it's this. And they were right. Like, they had it right. So this is a thing that I think I'm going to steal some good ideas from. Probably not the whole thing, but there are aspects here that I think we could watch out for in Excalibur to prevent like this kind of really insidious issue from rearing its ugly head and leaving us in the dark. Another one, which is kind of neat, from a friend over at the Web Game Dev Discord, Trezzy has a library they're working on called GameStats. It's really inspired by, if you've ever seen Stats.js by Mr. Doob, where it gives you like the FPS counter and some other stuff like that. Or have you seen like the Unity Graphy, where you can see like, random things happening. But this is the idea that games can plug in their own bespoke metrics into those kind of frame counters. And it doesn't have to be a game. It could be whatever web app you're doing, but it's pretty slick. It's giving you the ability to do custom graphs, custom stats, and a little widget that hangs out on your page. So definitely check that out. GameStats.js.
I feel like you could hook that into the React profiler in-app so that you could see like the graph of React renders over time or updates and stuff if you need to do debugging.
I bet you totally could. I'm looking at like the interface here. It's super low effort to add stuff.
That's cool. Or maybe if you've got an animation heavy app and you want to debug those animations and like get the FPS for the animations, I bet that could be helpful too.
For sure.
Cool. All right. Well, that's the end of the news episode. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Hi, everyone. This is Kamran. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the show, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to see the show notes, you can check your podcast player or go to typescript.fm, where you'll see a list of all the episodes. If you enjoyed the show, tell your friends, and please rate it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, because that's how the show grows and gets discovered by more people. If you want to suggest news or a project that should be covered, or just want to say hi, email us at feedback@typescript.fm. If you want to follow us on social, we're both active on Blue Sky. I'm at comronicus.com, and Eric is at ericonerheim.com. You can also follow the show directly at typescript.fm.